I had a question come in. In fact, I probably get this question asked at least once a month. And I decided to finally answer it one time. Because otherwise I'd be texting people back for days. And it's easier. And I might alleviate this question getting asked. Well, I'm hoping, but I doubt it'll work. I get asked probably once a month, maybe twice a month, but I'd say once a month. Uh, they watch my video or videos, and they ask me this weird question. Why do you gotta be gay? I'm like, what do you mean why? And they're like, and I text back. I'm like, is this a problem? And it's usually like find some girl that apparently likes my personality or something, and she just does. Oh, you are. It's like, I'm sorry. I didn't plan it to happen this way. It wasn't really my choosing. I just kind of I am who I am. Like that's just how it works. And I get these weird questions that go with it, and I thought I would answer a couple of them. And of course, my trusty phone is always has everybody texting me on this thing, and this thing needs to be replaced soon. In fact, it's supposed to be happening very soon. I know I keep saying that, but I'm told it's supposed to be very soon. Anyway, one of the big ones is, why do you have to be? I'm like, because that's how it worked out. I didn't choose this. I'm just me. I'm just Ken. And those of you that know me know that this is who I am. And if you don't like me, I'm so sorry. And somebody asked me, what do you do when somebody like watches the videos or they know you say, I don't like you? And all I can say to them is, oh, that's fine. They're like, don't you want to know why? I'm like, not really, because I didn't ask. And they go, but I I don't like you. I don't really care for you. I'm like, okay. And they said, well, what do you do when that happens? What goes through your head? I'm like, one less Christmas card to worry about. Because that's how I look at it. I'm not expecting everyone to like me. In fact, I wouldn't be surprised if I had more enemies than I realized, but that's here and there. But no, as far as this whole gamut with why are you or why do you have to be, I don't know. I just am. I'm just who I am. I'm I'm just your average dysfunctional American. Full-blooded. I guess I'm full-blooded. I guess, well, sort of. I'm 75% German, but argumentative and stubborn. But I get these weird questions of like, why are you? I don't know. I just way it worked out. And I mean, people have their theories on things, but this is who I am. And if you don't like it, I'm so sorry. Because what? You have any more? It's and I do have some people go, you know what? You're really because when people talk to me like face to face, and they get to know me, they say, you're actually really easygoing. I'm like, I know, I don't judge people. I mean, I have my opinions, and if you don't like something of mine, fine, you don't have to like it. You can hate these trees for all I care. Guess what? They're in my house. I have to dust them. It's like, why is such a big deal? But we on my Facebook even, and on the my main Facebook, and then this one, I get, it's like they get to know me, and they say, oh, once you get to know who you are, then it's like you forget about the other part. I'm like, if you say so, because most people can't figure out. They're on the fence about it. They think, well, you could be, but you might not be. I'm like, I love how my sexuality is such up for debate. It's like, can't I make my mind up who I am, or at least what my body wants and yearns and needs for, and get an itch and it needs scratching. So that's what brought up to the next question, which is the whole like it's not a question. It's more I'm just gonna explain something. I've had people that are like in their teenagers, where I worked at in different places, say things like, you realize that I don't agree with it, blah 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 blah. I'm like, fine, I don't care. And like, well, wait. I'm like, well, I'll tell you what. And I had a few 17-year-olds I had to say this to, and this is a good way of explaining it. It seems to make sense. Is they're like, well, they'll tell me they don't like it or agree with it or they don't think it's right or whatever. I'm like, okay, good, great. And I look at it this way. There's a couple attitudes and, mental brain think about it. And I think of it this way. People that have an issue with it for the religious reasons, well, they've been told this. Most people will tell you that they don't agree with the ones that don't agree with it. Say, well, it's not right. I'm like, really? When you tell me that, you have not done your homework. You have not taken the time to educate yourself and question what you know. Because if you really sat down and, I would never have researched the biblical stuff had it not been used against me. People wield that Bible like a sword because it's what they've been told to do. A lot of people can't actually live by the Bible, they just quote it. And when they quote it, they're quoting what they've been told this means. So, without getting on a big tangent about it, that's why I tell people. When I have people say, I don't like it, fine, you don't have to. Just like me, I don't like strawberry ice cream. So, it's a preference. And usually when people tell me that, and the ones that are very big on their faith, they're very heavy, I would say religious, but they're extremists, and they tell me things like, I don't like it. I'm like, okay. And I've had guys say, I don't like the idea of two dudes getting it. I'm like, okay, then don't watch the porn it has it in it. It's real simple. And they go, why don't I watch two girls? I said, technically, you're right there, you're contradicting yourself. And they go, what do you mean? I'm like, you're telling me you don't like homosexuality. Fine. Then but I guarantee you, if we pulled all the lesbian porn off, you'd be having a fit. And they just look at me. Because the one college did that. People said that they didn't like the idea of homosexuality, so they actually blocked all the lesbian porn. It's amazing how those guys didn't like that. It's like, you can't have your cake and eat it too. It don't work that way. But it is what it is. But here's my attitude towards it. When someone of religious background tells me that they don't like it, I'm like, fine. Doesn't that bother you? I'm like, nope. I'm like, why doesn't it bother you? I said, because of one thing. That's the argument of, you're pissed off because I'm eating a donut because you're on a diet. Get over yourself. Really. Or, like I would say about 17, 18-year-olds, if they have this attitude, it's wrong or whatever. And I look at myself, you live at home with your mom and dad still, don't you? And they're like, yeah. I'm like, mom and dad don't know everything. I said, number two, when you're in 10 years and you're with your wife and your baby and a baby on the way and it's, the November, you got heating bills coming, Christmas is coming, the kid's gonna need braces at some point, you got vacation, you have your hunting, you got all this stuff going, you have all these obligations and priorities that you created because you got married and had kids and created your reality as to what it is. And if you're laying in bed at night, not looking at what your responsibilities are that you created and take the accountability of it, and you're worried about who the 10-year relationship that I've been in with a monogamous partner, and you're more worried about what goes on in my bedroom than what's going on in yours, you got a major problem with your priorities twisted up because you created your reality, you're married, you have kids, that's what you need to concentrate on, your responsibility. Not wonder what the guy next door is doing to his boyfriend. What do you really care? What's it really going to hurt you any? In fact, if you get to know the guys, they might actually be able to really could teach you some cool barbecuing tips, or maybe actually help you landscape your house so you can't get done because you have no money, because you have kids. And I'm not saying you have money, you have no kids. I'm just saying that that's what a lot of people get in this habit of going, I don't agree with it. Fine, you don't have to. I don't care. You don't have to. Like someone said to me, well, what is something that straight people do that you don't like? And I'm like, well, I'm sure there is. Like what? I'm like, honestly, the ones who really know how to milk the system, the ones that go out and they'll have 4 or 5 kids to 5 different fathers, and it's a single mom with these kids that the state's supporting, people are like, well, at least she's not a homosexual. How do you know that? How do you know she's not a lesbian? She's just doing what she thinks is effective because the state keeps paying for it. Now, I'm not trying to get on a political kick here, but be reasonable here. And really and truly, I have not had that much flack over the gay thing. In fact, the most flack I had was on my dad's side of the family. And my father, he really rides that. He will wield that Bible like a sword at you like yours. And the thing is, he's such a contradiction on legs. There's a reason why I don't really talk to him. And if he watches this, that's why. Because you're a contradiction. You say this, you do that. And after a while, you get tired of talking to people like that. When someone contradicts themselves in the same breath, it's an art form. But I'm not going to keep watching it. And people say, well, when you are teased or, you did get attitude for it, what did you do? I said, well, when you realize you don't got to stand still and take it, or as I've learned, when people get to know who I am as a person, and they go, oh, and you're gay. I'm like, yeah, and people like to ask, how did you come out? Well, I knew most, not all of them, but I'd say a good chunk of people that are gay. I want to say the vast majority. Now, not every one of them. I'm sure someone is going to say the polar opposite, just to be contrary about it. But I knew at 5 something was up. I didn't know it was gay. I just knew I didn't really. I mean, I had nothing against girls. I don't have a problem with them, but I just wasn't attracted to them. And at 5, I noticed something was a little different. But again, I couldn't put a word to it, no title if you want to put a label on it. But when I was 13, my mom got, the big, thick JCPenney catalog just coming in the mail. Well, in the middle of it, where the little order forms are, and it's the apparel section, there was a picture of a guy in a pair of, a t-shirt and a pair of briefs. And he filled those briefs out quite nicely. And it was the first time, the first time that I just flipping through it, and I've gone through this before, and something caught my attention, and I'm like, ooh. I remember feeling that first, ooh, kind of thing. And so, of course, I became quite the expert at masturbating at 13. It worked wonders, and I kept that catalog in my bedroom for the longest time. And through the years, I knew what was going on in my head, and I tried to like girls, and I did date one for 4 years. She was a lesbian, and yeah, we did have sex, but nothing personal. I mean, she and I were both, a very consensual, if you will. We were adults. We were consensual about it. But when it comes down to it, and just working with people that come up to me and they start telling me stuff, they're like, well, how do you know? I'm like, and one of my favorite questions I get asked recurringly is, if I enjoy anal sex, does that mean that I'm gay? I'm like, no. It's just you like having your prostate stimulated. And I've had women say, well, how do you do it? And I told them, I explained to them how to use a condom and that. And they're like, oh. I'm like, really? You might be shocked as to how satisfying it is. He's going to get a whole new thrill. And, of course, I've had guys walk up and go, okay, look, I'm not gay or anything, but you were talking to her about this prostate thing. I'm like, yeah. Could you possibly explain this to me? I'm like, yeah, sure, no problem. And I'm like, look, it's been there. It's like a walnut-sized thing. And I go into detail and I tell them about it. And they're like, are you serious? I said, I'm going to tell you something. You will be shocked as to how strong it is. I said, after you have it once like that, you're going to want it again. I said, usually you can get a toy that stimulates it and blah, 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 blah. And they're just like, you're so casual. And it's a primal need. And when you try something, some people are like, oh my God, I can never do that. Fine, then don't. Like, I've had girls tell me that they will not give to their husband because it's disgusting to them to actually go down on something that he urinates from. I'm like, okay, you don't want to do it, fine. But if you want your husband to do something, or your partner for that matter, do something that you're not too crazy about, like if you want him to do something to you, you gotta be willing to work with that. But getting back to the whole thing is, I've had a lot of people thrown in my face about it, and I've researched it. I looked up stuff that blew me away. And I've learned that, you know what, it is just, and a nutshell version of it is, to get you guys who want to look this stuff up, is if you look in the wonderful thing called the Bible, which, by the way, if you translate Bible, it means book. Not really that complicated. Holy book. That's what it means. Sacred book, if you want to call it that. Now, if you look at it, you open it up, and it always goes into the first thing about the Old Testament versus New Testament, and it does contradict itself. And people say it doesn't. Yes, it does. Just read it. It's not hard to understand. But here's the catch. People say they contradict. There's a reason. When they wrote the Old Testament, it was written in Hebrew. Basically proper Hebrew. Like formally, okay? If you really translate, because there's a huge difference between translate and transliterate. Two very big differences. Very important to know. Then you get to the New Testament, which is written it's in Greek, but it's not formal Greek. It's kind of like Ebonics for Greek. It's really layman termed out. There's nothing sophisticated. It's very casually wrote. It's almost like something you would see on a cocktail napkin. It's nothing that, but if you read them and you learn how to transliterate it, and how the workings are, they say, well, why do we have the Old Testament, New Testament contradict? Because the Old Testament was one set of standards and expectations. The New Testament, it contradicts because the Old Testament no longer was current. It didn't work, so they created a new one. But because someone couldn't give up the old one, they put both to satisfy people. Then you get into the King James part of it, who he was anything but a Christian. And this is just an ongoing thing. And people say about the whole gay thing. First of all, gays have been around since we walked the earth. In the animal kingdom, there's gays. Do you know what? There is homosexuality in every species. Okay? However, there's only one. They've done studies on it. Look it up. Google it yourself. It's out there. There's one species that has homophobia. Humans. They're the only ones. Everyone else is totally cool with it. Like, you look at dogs, cats, birds, insects. Insects are goofy because they have a very weird way of looking at sex. If you really study it, I know, like, wow, I study insects. You might be shocked. You might really get shocked over what you learn because there's so many things out there to go over. So, when you have people asking, like myself, about the whole gay thing, oh my god, they think it's, hey, no, I can shoot cannons of sequins off everywhere. I could be, like I said 100 times over, I am the big pink flamingo in the Green Garden of Life. So what? I mean, I can decorate like a fiend, but that's just something that I do. I mean, when people think gay, they have this big, gay pride flags and all these different little things that kind of, the stereotypes, which I should probably do a video on stereotypes, just show you guys how crazy the stereotypes are and how straight people look at them, and gay people, because you have, years ago when there wasn't any gay movies out, those movies, Hollywood, the great maker of myths that it is, it educated you. When you seen a gay person, they were depicted as funny, pitiful, fearful, and it taught society what to think of gay people, and it taught gay people what to think of themselves, because you have movies where they're not depicted well. And I've heard people tell me, I had a mother actually come up to me, she's up in her 60s, she said that when she was younger, her son was in a school play. And in the play, there was this guy who was known to be a gay guy. Like, he wasn't labeled gay, but they kind of assumed he was because of the way history portrayed itself to be, that he was gay. But there was a rule for a murderer who apparently had killed, I think it was like 20-some people, and he wasn't even caught yet. But through the story, like, at the end, we know who he was. We know this guy was gay, this guy was a killer, and yet she told me, she had more of a problem with her son playing a gay guy than the guy who killed 25 people. And I looked at her and went, really? I said, you have more of a problem with your son playing the role of a gay person who, throughout the whole movie, he does nothing gay, or the play, he does nothing gay, it's just, he's the gay guy. But you have more of a problem with that versus him playing the guy who killed people. She goes, yeah. She goes, I look back at it now, I think how stupid that was. So when people get to know me and they talk to me about it, and they throw all that out there, it really gets interesting because the stories you hear. And most, I would say 90-95% of them will tell me, oh, I have no problem, I don't care, that's your business. I mean, you occasionally be the ones that go, well, look, you do, that's your business, you do what you want, but it ain't my thing. I'm like, good, because, and I love it when you get these guys that go, hey, I don't care if you're gay or whatever. I'm like, yeah, whatever, then we'll be working later on, and go, so do you, like, think I'm attractive? And I'm like, because they always say that, you get that line before that, which is, well, don't ever hit on me. And I'm like, oh, trust me, I won't be. Well, am I not attractive? I'm like, whoa, you're asking me if I think you're hot. Well, and I'm like, no, you can't have it both ways. You can't tell me don't hit on you, which I have no problem not doing because I don't think you're attractive at all. I don't like you. I think you could use, I mean, seriously, you need to take a shower. Then you get the same one who goes, what, am I not hot to you? No, I'm sorry. Well, what's wrong with me? It's like, trust me, there's some guys that, one guy told me, he goes, are you recruiting? And I'm like, I look at them going, first of all, I don't recruit anybody. I won't do that. You want recruited, go to the Marines, go to the military, recruiting, I don't do that. So, but, yeah, people have definitely give me that impression at times that they want to know. They really, because the guys would do, and a group of guys, like I've had it happen several times, you get a group of guys that they just do not say anything about, hey, whatever, that's your business. But when you get them on their own by themselves and you start talking to them, they start asking really weird questions. They get like, so what's it like? I'm like, what's what like? Well, hanging out with a guy. I'm like, wait a minute, hanging out with a guy. Or you mean something else? And they're like, well, what's the thrill of having something up there? And I'm like, it's the prostate. But, and I've had guys seriously say to me, what's the prostate? I'm like, you have one. I do not. I'm not gay. I'm like, gay has nothing to do with prostate. You're a guy, you have a prostate. But no, I don't. I'm like, yes, I guarantee you have a prostate. I love that one. That always throws me. It's like, really, you think because you're... I don't know where they feel they don't... If you don't have a prostate, I'd like to know how you're... I don't know. I just don't understand that. So, whatever. But you get that. You get that a lot. They will try to play it off that only gay guys have prostates. I'm like... Or I've gotten ones that, hey, I have no problem with gay guys. I'm like, good. We have no problem with you either. Just don't be a dick. And then you get the ones who, they don't have a problem, they don't slam you, they don't praise you, but they don't slam you. And then over time, they start to get comfortable and they start asking questions. And they always ask very weird questions that I always get perplexed over because I don't know why they're asking me these questions. But they're really interesting questions. And I'm like, really? Why would a straight guy want to know what this is about? Because frankly put, I don't care how straight you think you are. I don't care how gay you are. I don't care how straight. I don't care if you're black or purple dots. I don't care if you're transgender. You've got questions. Even me. I asked my mom the other day a question about her vagina. She's like, oh my God, why are you talking? You're human. I'm nosy. I like to know things. Doesn't mean I'm about to go nosedive into the next one that walks past me. But seriously, let's get real here. So, but as far as the whole coming out thing, I had a successful coming out. That's not everyone's story, and I can be respectful of that, and I know it's going to do a long video and all, but I can be respectful of it. Most people, they have no problem with it. You get the ones that do have a problem, they're insecure with themselves. And they're the ones that couldn't come out. Or they're the ones that were told this is a horrible thing, but then when they get to know you, they're like, because I've had it happen, people like, they were professional, they didn't say anything about it, to each his own kind of thing. And afterwards, I've had my managers or somebody walk up and go, those two over there, you left for the night. I'm like, yeah, because I was at the end of my shift. And they said, that Ken guy is actually really cool. He's like, oh, I know. He says, Ken's a real nice guy. He goes, he's for a gay guy? He's really a neat guy to talk to. My manager's like, what does gay have to do with it? He's just a nice guy. You can be a nice person and be gay. It does exist. We are out there. But some guys and women they want to assume that you have this thing that's wrong with you in their eyes, or they're told it's wrong because, and this kind of comes back to religion, where they're told something by their preacher, reverend, pastor, clergy. They don't question it because you don't question the clergy. This is a man of God. I'm sorry, you're as human as I do. You use the bathroom like I do. You get sick like I do. You gotta shave. You gotta get dressed. You might wear a robe on Sunday. I might not. But guess what? You're as human as I do. You have your mistakes too. And when people say, well, the preacher said, I don't care what the preacher said. Read it for yourself. Educate yourself. This is the big knowledge is power. You got to sit down and stop listening to what you're told and start questioning what you're told. Because you won't, and this is where some adults have more of a problem me questioning them than the whole gay thing. They get why you got to question so much stuff? Because I want to know. So I did, and thanks to my father's side of the family, who gave me some flack over it, they made life hard for a while, which is fine, because I educated myself. I looked over that Bible that they hit me with. I looked into stuff. I spent years, And like I tell people, I would never have looked this stuff up had it not been used against me, but I didn't have a choice because it's like you're being beaten with a stop sign. And you're like, why are you hitting me with this? Well, yeah, it's supposed to be doing. But human beings are funny like that. They henpeck. Anything that's different, they don't like. They like routine. They like stuff that's the same. But there's one thing about life I'm learning, and it's just nothing's the same. Everything's keep changing. And people need to learn. Arthur Schopenhauer, he was a German philosopher back in the mid 1800s, and he's been dead for quite some time. And he had a quote he put out, and he was a very smart guy. And he said, all truths pass through three stages. First, it is ridiculed. Second, it is violently opposed. And third, it becomes accepted by being self-evident. Every truth you ever learned has gone through that. Left-handed people used to get killed because of that. I'm also left-handed. But they're finding out left-handed people actually look at life differently. And being gay, having one eye, being left-handed, boy, the odds are stacked against me. I'm still here. So when people tell me they don't like me, it's fine. You don't have to. I don't really hear it that often, but I do. I have had people go, I don't like that person. It's fine. I'm not worried. So, but as far as, am I okay with being gay? Absolutely. I have absolutely no problem. I was okay with it faster than I was with my eye. Like, my eye I had more issues with. I know I'm going on here. I'm going to try to wrap this up. But, yeah. If people want to know, I am. So what? Move on. What's for lunch tomorrow? But it's questioning. But people don't question. People question what they don't understand. And they don't want to sometimes understand something because then I think it will be okay in their mind and they got to deprogram what they've been told for 20-some years. And then they have to relearn that, oh, this is actually normal. The whole stop the hate thing, really. But there are certain religions out there, I'm not going to pick on them, but there are certain faiths and denominations out there that really need a wake-up call. Because technically, according to that Bible that people go on about, there is no denomination of being a Christian. It's just Christian. There's no Methodist, there was no Baptist, there was no Lutheran, there's no Catholic. It was one religion. And we have split up to so much, it's so diverse. But yeah, it's one of those, it's a tricky situation because the human opinion comes into play, because the opinions are swayed by a lot of things. People say, well, the preacher said this. Well, you know what? Your preacher can be wrong. I don't care how much schooling you go through. He can still learn things. Just because he's teaching a congregation a verse on Sunday doesn't mean that his congregation can't teach him. He is just as much of a student as you are. He might have a degree on the wall that says he went to Bible school, but you know what? He doesn't have a degree on that says he went to the University of Life because he's still attending it. He might have his associate's degree, but as far as his master's, he is far from it. I feel this way. Do you ever really learn everything? No. But you also need to learn not to judge. Just because you don't understand something and the way someone does something doesn't give you a reason or the excuse to judge them and put them in. You can draw your opinion, but it is your opinion that they don't need to necessarily hear. And just because somebody does something, and I'm not talking about sexual preference, I'm talking about anything. Just because someone does something that you think's crazy and weird, then it's stupid or it's the dumbest thing. Stop what you're doing and be compassionate, and practice and exercise some patience and common courtesy. You'll get so much farther if you just wouldn't think that you were right all the time. And don't be afraid to say you're sorry once in a while. It builds character. It shows that you are human and you can learn. So just because someone's telling you something and they're telling you that this is how it is, or that God said this, or God said... First of all, Jesus, if you look in the Bible, he never said a word about homosexuals. It was never mentioned. But welcome to how man has interpreted his own judgments. So yeah, but so is life. But I'm almost at 30 minutes. So talk to you guys later. Next video's coming up soon. Be good, dad. Have fun trying. Keep rocking, guys. See ya. Toodles.